All right, thank you very much. So these are some of the projects we have executed over time for clients, for personal projects and all of that. So we, to a large extent, we are a technology and innovation driven studio. And as you can see, that's what we have been pushing through this 3D visual fashion. So first of all, I would like to make apologies for everyone who might be here and might not be Nigerian, because I understand we have some people from other country here. I'm sorry if you don't understand my English perfectly well. I'll try as much as possible to be slow and to be audible as possible so everyone can understand me. And please, if you have any questions regarding this class, you can always reach out to me through Steven and through the group chats. All right, thank you very much. So we are going to be looking at Introduction to 3D Visual Fashion for this class. Now, before I show you how to go around the software and how to, go around with the tricks, with all of that, I would like to simply notify you of the fact that just like every other technical software, it's not something that you might be able to learn like in a very short period of time. It's not something that you might actually even be able to learn in just 2 days, if I'm going to be honest with you. So what I intend to do through this class is to actually expose you to the basics, to show you how things are done. So in case you intend to actually start, you wouldn't feel lost going about and finding your way around the software. All right. So we understand that 3D visual fashion is not something that you can just find your way around very quickly. At the initial state of sorting out or finding your way around 3D visual fashion, you might have some complexities, and that is why we offer a more extended class. So we actually have a 5-week extensive class where we actually break down things into pieces. We actually take you through the whole process from being a beginner to actually being a professional and being able to execute amazing projects on Clotilde. So you might be asking yourself why you should train with us and what is special about our training. Well, the first thing about our training is that we provide our students with all needed software. So immediately you register for our 5-week training, we are going to be providing you with all the software. We are not just going to be providing you with it, we're also going to be helping you with the installation process. So we are going to be giving you Clotilde, we are going to be giving you Photoshop, we are going to be giving you Autodesk Maya. All you need to do is to have a computer. Now, another thing I would like you to know now is that if you tried getting this softwares, like you try buying it online, they could be very expensive. But what we actually do is that we actually give it out to students. Yeah, these softwares actually have free trial mode too. You can actually go online and see their free trial mode. But when we actually give it to you, you have a lifetime access to these softwares. So another thing about our free training is that we also provide students with visual assets to assist their learning process. I'm very sorry about that. So we are going to be giving you free virtual clothes. We are going to be giving you free clothes textures. We are going to be giving you free fashion OBJs. So in case you intend to go into business with 3D visual fashion, even after the class, we will provide you with enough resources for you to actually, have a background to actually start learning. Then also, we are also going to be giving you free clothes textures and free fashion OBJs. Then thirdly, when you train with us, we also see that we don't just want you to come have the class with us and go and not be able to do anything practically. So what we do to make sure that students actually understand the process is to see that we create opportunities for them to actually recreate what they have been taught. So we do this by giving them class projects and by supervision from highly skilled tutors. So we have 2 class modules. We have the beginners class modules, beginners to intermediate, which is just for 50,000. And then we have the advanced class, which is also for 50,000. If you choose to take the 2 courses, one after the other, then you have a discount of 5%. And each individual course runs for a space of 5 weeks and 4 days a week. So you can, of course, ask more questions about this after the training. I'm just going to go ahead with the class right now. Thank you very much. All right. So Clotilde. So I've formed an outline to make the class much more easier for us to understand. You know, I mentioned earlier that we might not be able to go through every single thing on Clothiry, but I have formed an elaborate tutorial, an elaborate direction through which you can actually understand how you can find your way around Clothiry if you are actually new to the software. So what we are going to be looking at today is going to be very simple. We are going to be looking at Introduction to Clothiry User Interface. That is when you open Clothiry and you see all the complex things there, like how do you go about it? Using the pattern creation and editing tools in Clothiry, then we are going to do something interesting. We are going to be creating a sleeveless Ankara gown in Clothiry. Now you might have been noticing that I've been mentioning Clothiry. Well, Clothiry is actually the 3D visual fashion software we are going to be using. There are different visual fashion software out there, but Clothiry is the most used, and it is the one that has the widest, and it has the best capacity based on the industry standard. So this is Clothiry. Now, when you open Clothiry, you get to see all those buttons, you get to see all of this, and you have that tendency to be scared, and you be like, oh, what is this? What are all those buttons? What does this mean? What does this mean? And you're asking yourself the question that where do I start from? Where do I go from here? Well, what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to take you through all of the interface in Clothiry. So whenever you open Clothiry, you don't have to worry about finding your way around, about getting things sorting out and finding out where one thing is in or where the other thing is. So when you open Clothiry, the first thing you are going to see at this first side, at the top right, sorry, at the top left here. Okay, from this place. Okay, at the top right. Yeah, the top right, I guess. So from this place, you are going to see your library. Now, your library is the menu option that contains all the default assets that come with Clothiry. You have your garments. You can see you have some free garments that you get immediately you open Clothiry. You have your avatar. Okay, let me just close this. I'm going to close this particular file. I'm going to open it again so I can explain some of this process to you better. So very quickly, I'm just going to say file, and I'm going to say new to create a new file. Okay. So you can see you have your avatar option here, and you have a couple of avatars you can choose from Clothiry. You have this avatar here. Then, but me, I have some customized setting where I have some extra avatar. But initially, when you open Clothiry, you have about 5 free avatar. Then you can go ahead to download more avatar if you like. So if I don't want to work with this character, if I want to work with a black character on Clothiry, what I simply do is that I select the character, I double click it, and I say open. All right, great. So we have this avatar opened. If I want to use a black woman, for instance, I can double click on this and say open. So depending on the project you are working on, you might want to use a black avatar, you might want to use a white avatar, depending on what the direction your project is entailing. I'm not going to go very deep into the avatars, but another option you have while dealing with avatar is that you can actually make your avatar a plus size. You can make your avatar fatter, you can make your avatar thinner, you can make your avatar, depending on the size and the size of the model and the type of clothes you want to make and the look you are trying to achieve. So still under our library, we have our hanger, we have our fabric. When you open your hanger, you see we have different hangers that you can actually select in case you don't want to work with an avatar. You actually want to make your clothes on an hanger and showcase it that way. We have different fabrics that come with the software. Okay, I'm going to open back the previously closed file. So just a moment, please. I'm going to open back that file so we can have better understanding of what I'm saying. Okay, open. Oh, no. This is not what I'm trying to open. So I'm very sorry, please. Just a moment. Let me get the right file. So I have this in this place, project 5. Just a moment, please. Project 4, nah, not here. 3, not here, okay. I think I'm just going to open it from this other place here. So open project. Let's not open something. Let's open 716. Open. All right. So this should work fine now. All right. So depending on the size of the file, it might take a little bit of time to open. Perfect. So we have the initial avatar that I was trying to explain things with better. So you have your fabric options here where you can actually select a couple of default fabric that comes with Clo3D. You have your hardware and trim. You have your material. You have your stage where you can actually select your stage in case you want to do an animation runway with Clo3D. All right. So we are good to go with this. So I'm not going to go deep into this, but like the whole summary of this library is that this is where you get the default things that come with Clo3D. This is where you select your avatar. This is where you select your stage. This is where you select some default fabric. You can actually go ahead and import new avatar that are not in this place, but this is just the base for you to get the default asset that come with Clo3D. Now, another interesting thing you can do with this is that you can actually import a new folder into this place. Maybe you have a folder that you want to work with, or a folder that you have some of your assets in, such as maybe your fabric, your downloaded avatar. You can actually click on this add button up here. Then you can add a selected project. So, but I'm not going to be doing that. So that is that for the library. Then what do we have here? Next, we have our 3D window. So your 3D window is simply where the simulation or draping of clothes take place and the place where your avatar is going to be located in. So whenever you open an avatar, it's going to come to this place. And whenever you sew or draw a pattern outline here, it's going to be replicated to be shown on the avatar in this place. So this is simply known as your 3D window. While these other upper tools in this place are your 3D window tools. Then by the side here, you have your 2D pattern window. You can see your 2D pattern window. For those of us that are familiar with traditional sewing, your 2D pattern window is just like your cutting table where you cut out, your materials, where you draft, you trace, you draw your materials so that you can actually bring it to life when you sew it. So this is what it simply does. And up here, we have our 2D pattern windows. Then by the side here, we have our object browser. So I want you to see the object browser as a box of material that contains all the objects you are going to be using for your file. So you can see, for instance, now look at the different fabric I've used for this work. I have them placed in this. I have them put in this place here. This place also contains the buttons that I use. Look at the buttons I use for this clothes here now. Look at it here. So if I was to use more buttons for my project, I'm going to see it in this place. So whatever you are using, is it button O, your top stitch, your puckering, your grading, all those kind of tools, you actually find them in this place. Then by this lower side here, what you actually have is your property editor. So what your property editor is that it does is that it stores information of all assets in your scene. So whenever you want to get the information and be able to also edit information about any assets, you click, whether it is from the object browser or from the 2D pattern window, you can actually see it there. So if I click on Fabric 2, for instance, now, you can see that it brings out the details of Fabric 2. So if I want to go and edit Fabric 2, if I want to change the color of Fabric 2, if I want to do whatever I want to do, I'm going to see the details for Fabric 2 in this place. The same thing goes with the pattern here. If I click on any pattern in my 2D window, you see that it brings out these options. So what these options allow me to do is to edit the pattern window. Then we have the 3D window too. If I click on the avatar too, it's going to bring out details of the avatar. So I don't want you to get confused by this initial stage. What I'm simply doing is that I'm just trying to tell you where things are located in Clo3D. So you don't have to worry specifically about not knowing whether, oh, this is, how do I use this now? How do I use this now? No, don't worry about any of that. What I'm simply trying to do is to take your hands and show you how to work around Clo3D so that when you open Clo3D, you are not confused. So very quick recap of what I've said is that this is your library. Your library contains the default asset of all Clo3D files like the avatars. It is from your library that you can select your avatar. This is your 3D window where your visual model is going to be staying in and where she's going to be wearing the clothes. This is your 2D pattern window where you actually get to draw the pattern that is replicated in your 3D pattern window. This is your object browser that contains the details of your of all objects being used in the scene, and this is your property editor that contains the details of all objects being used. All right, so we are good to go. So very quickly, I'm going to take you through this up here. I'm not going to spend much time on these two. Up here, we have our menu box. So on the first page, we have our file. So on that file, we have new. In case you want to create a new work, we have open. If you want to open an existing project already, you can just click on open and you can say I can open any of the projects I've been working on. Still under this file, you can save a project, you can import, maybe you want to import an OBJ or different file format. The more you use Clo3D, you understand the different file formats, but this is just the place where you import. You can export, you can, when you take a screenshot of your clothes, you can export snapshot. So this is where you carry such operations, such as opening a new file and bringing in a new file. Then the next thing we have our edit. So when you are working on your files and you want to do basic edits like going back on a step, going forward on a step, you can always come here. But all of these have shortcuts you can definitely always click. For instance, if you want to go back, instead of spending a long time coming here to actually say undo, Ctrl Z, you can actually just press the Ctrl Z. That is going to make you have a much faster workflow on Clo3D. Then you have the 3D garments, which contains information about your 3D garments. You have the 2D pattern, contains information about your 2D pattern window. You have your sewing tool that contains all your sewing machine, what you are going to be using to sew. You have your materials that contains information about your material. So most of the things here actually have been replicated somewhere. They're just like repeating what they have said again, because all these options that are in this place are actually in other places too. You have your avatar options where you can edit your avatar. Do you want to delete an avatar? Do you want to know the measurement of your avatar? So when I say avatar, I simply mean your virtual model. So this is an avatar, for instance. So you have your render where you can use Clo default render engine to actually make your pictures look really good. You have your display, you have your preferences where you can edit your Clo3D. You have your settings where you can choose your language. You have your user settings where you can choose your mouse control. Maybe you are using a 2 mouse button and you want to set your button. That's what this option is for. Then you have your help in case you need help going around Clo3D. So very quickly, I've taken you through how you can navigate through Clo3D. Now, the next thing I said we are going to look at in the class is that we are going to be getting introduced to the pattern editing tool. So now, what I want you to understand about Clo3D is, before I go ahead, is that the way Clo3D works is that it has a very simple process. So what you simply do to create your garment is that you draw out your pattern in this place, just like in real life when you want to sew your clothes. You draw out your pattern. For instance, look at this skirt now. This skirt you are seeing here, this skirt pattern and this one here is the same thing. They are just in different states. So this one is in the flat state. It has not been worn on the body. So for instance, if I right click on this and I click on reset to the arrangement, I'm sorry about that. So you can see it is still the same here as it is in this place. So the way Clo3D works is that you draw out your pattern, then you use your sewing tool to actually sew the clothes together, just like the way you use your machine to sew in real life after you have cut out the pattern. So you sew it on the avatar. Then when you sew it on the avatar, it actually drips. It collides with the avatar to actually form a decent shape. So that's basically the whole theory behind Clo3D. Behind most of the visual fashion softwares, you have a screen where you can draw your clothes, where you can draw your patterns, and you have another screen where whatever you are drawing is being replicated to be worn on your 3D virtual model. All right, so we are good to go. So now I said I'm going to be talking about the 2D pattern windows. Yes, how you can actually draw all these kind of things, how you can, create, how you can edit them. But very quickly, before I talk about that, I think it will be more important for me to explain to you how you can actually move around. Look at the way I'm rotating my model right now. The way I can turn around, I can look at my model from every perspective. It is very important you know how to do this so you don't get confused while using Claude 3D. So this is simply called navigation or camera movement in the Claude 3D space. So the first thing I'm going to teach you to do is how to pan. So pan simply means moving like this. Look. So maybe I want to move to a specific place in my clothes. How you can actually take your camera this way. Aha. So to pan, what you are going to need is your middle mouse button. Yeah, I didn't mention it at first, but to work with 3D visual fashion, you are going to need a computer and you are going to need a 3 mouse button. It's going to be much more easier if you have a 3 mouse button because most of the configurations, most of the settings are actually made to work with 3 mouse buttons. So get your mouse and get your computer. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the type of computers you need. You don't need a computer very complex to start, but you definitely know you can't do this on clothes. You can't do this on any Android or iPhone for right now. What you need is a computer to going with this. So going ahead, to pan around, you can use your middle mouse button and you just, once you click your middle mouse button, you don't leave it alone, you keep on dragging it. So that way you can move around. Perfect. The another thing you can do is that if you want to rotate your camera, if I want to look at the back of my model, so don't mind this little thing I've kept in this space, this little red line I've put here. I just put it for the sake of being able to pin the clothes to the avatar for some reasons. Don't pay too much attention to this work. It's one of the works we did recently. I feel it's going to be a good word to use to explain, but don't pay too much attention about the details of this work. I'm just using it as a means of explaining how Claude 3D works to you. All right, so we are good to go. So you can see, if you want to rotate, what you simply do to rotate is that you right click on your mouse, simply right click, don't press any other thing, then you drag in the direction you want to rotate. So I'm right clicking now, I want to rotate it towards this direction, so I can rotate. If I want to rotate it upwards, I can rotate this way. You can see. So it's very important you know how to navigate. Another thing you need to know how to do is how to zoom in and how to zoom out. So to zoom in and zoom out, what you simply need to do is to scroll. Just take your button like this, your middle mouse button, scroll in, scroll up, scroll in, scroll up, scrolling, scroll up. Very simple. So the same tricks for moving your camera around in this place also applies to your 2D pattern window. If you want to move around the 2D pattern window, what you simply need to do is middle mouse button and drag around. Then you'll be able to go around your 3D pattern window. If you want to zoom in and zoom out, you can absolutely just scroll in your mouse. You cannot rotate in the 2D pattern window. You can only rotate here because your 2D pattern window is flat. Whenever you hear the word 2D, it simply means two-dimensional. So it does not have any depth. So this place, you can just zoom in and zoom out. You can just pan, but you cannot rotate like you can rotate in this place. So other things you need to know about moving your camera around there is that there are some customized options for you to actually move around. So for instance, if I want this to actually be straight, completely straight, what I can do is that I can right click. I simply right click on an empty space in my 2D window, right click, and I'll see front. Well, if I press front, you can see it comes focus to the front. If I press this, it comes this way. If I right click again and press back, it's going to show me the back of my model. If I right click and go with right, it's going to show me the right side of my model. Aha. Then yeah, those are the things you can do. And you also have the shortcuts. If you don't want to be spending too much time, right clicking and pressing it, you can just press the shortcut. You can press 2 forward, you can press 3, 4, 5. You can see if you want to look at it from the front view, from the upper view, you press 5. And if you want to go back to our front view, we press 2. All right. So one challenge you might encounter with Clotilde, or one challenge I encountered when I started working with Clotilde is that sometimes I will just lost my model while I'm working. I will not know exactly where I put my model. Maybe I mistakenly zoom in or zoom out too much, and then you can see my 3D window is empty, and I'm looking for it, and I'm wondering, oh, where did this go? Where did this go? So in case you encounter that issue, what you can simply do is that you can simply right click and select zoom extend all. So by right clicking zoom extend all, you are simply telling the computer that, okay, focus my avatar right back at the screen. All right. So it's the same thing here too. Sometimes you can get lost in your 2D pattern window and you are looking for it and you are trying to find it. You are trying to pan to find. You can simply right click and say, come to this last option here that says zoom extend all. Then you have this reading. You have all your shapes. All right, perfect. Then one more last thing I think is very important that you need to know about the 3D pattern window before I talk about the 2D pattern editing tools is that you need to know how to move your object around in your 3D pattern window. And how do you move your object around in the 3D pattern window? You move it around with the gizmo tool. So you can see this kind of shape here. Will I call it a shape or an object? Or let me just say tool as it is professionally referred as. It is also known as the manipulator because it is used to manipulate your object like this. You can use it to move around, to scale, to do different things with your object. So when you open Clo3D, the first thing to do with your gizmo tool is to actually go to this place here. Go to your preferences, you go to your gizmo, and you want to put it at world coordinates. Most of the time, it could be at local coordinates, but you want to put this at world coordinates so that it can be oriented in your 3D view. So if you do like this now, if you turn this direction and you select your gizmo tool, your gizmo tool will be actually facing your 3D world space. So it's very important that you know how to move your object about. So if I select my sketch now, I can actually move this around. You can see. If I want to rotate this, I can actually rotate this. Aha. So to move, what you simply do is that you click on the object you want to use, on the pattern you want to use. You click on it once, then it brings out the gizmo tool. Then on your gizmo tool, we are going to notice these tiny arrows here. You are going to notice this green arrow. You are going to notice the blue arrow. You are going to notice the red arrow. So these arrows actually allow you to move your pattern in the direction that they are pointing. So if you want to move forward, for instance, you click on this blue pattern because it is showing front. The blue pattern is also known as the Z-axis. So once you click on it, you can see I'm moving forward. If I want to move forward and I click on this red gizmo tool, on the red arrow, and I try moving forward, it will move forward because the red arrow is actually facing the horizontal direction. So you can only move this way and this way using the horizontal direction. Aha, perfect. So that is about the gizmo tool. You can also rotate with the gizmo tool. You can actually rotate, can turn your sketch like this. So it's very important you know how to use the gizmo tool. It's not difficult to use because when you create clothes in this space and they appear in your 3D space, sometimes you are going to be the one to offset the pattern. Sometimes you might create some clothes in this place and for some reason you find the clothes in this place. It is not directly in this place. So it is your gizmo tool that you are going to use to select your object and you're actually going to use to move it to the right place you want it to get positioned in. So that's basically what your gizmo tool helps you do. It helps you move around your object in the 3D pattern space. All right. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to go back and put my sketch the way it was initially. All right. So we can go ahead with the class now. So, now the next thing I'm going to be teaching you now, like we have shown on our schedule, I think we have gone through introduction to Clo3D user interface. We are going to be looking at using the pattern creation and editing tools in Clo3D. So what these tools are going to teach you how to do is that how you can actually draw out your patterns to form a cloth shape. So if you are a tailor, if you are a fashion designer, you are going to have more fun using this. You are going to enjoy this process using it because it is the same way you draw patterns in real life that you actually draw patterns to be used for Clo3D. So the only difference now is that this is like visual. So you are taking your knowledge of drawing pattern on your, your cotton paper, and you're actually putting it here. Also, if you are not a fashion designer and if you have no experience in cutting out, cutting out shapes and cutting out patterns, you don't need to worry. I also am not a tailor. I don't have tailoring experience. But the more you use Clo3D, the more you actually get to learn and understand the process, the more you get to enjoy it. But if you do have the knowledge already as a fashion designer, of course, you definitely know that you are going to have an edge, because this is definitely you just applying the same principles. A lot of things you are going to be doing on Clo3D is that you are simply going to be applying the principles of traditional sewing virtually. So like we said, and during our last conference, I remember we talked about the importance of Clo3D, how it is now becoming a necessity for every fashion designer as everything is going digital. So what Clo3D is basically allowing you to do is that you are carrying your sewing machine, you are carrying your model that will have actually helped you to visualize your clothes, and you are taking it into the computer and saying, okay, I want to do all of this in this place here. So you have your sewing machine here, you have your ruler, you have your chalk. They might not be named exactly that way, but you are not going to stress. Whatever you want to do, like for instance, if you want to add button, just like the way you add button in your real life, you can do virtually everything here. So Clo3D is a very extensive software. It has been made it has been channeled to actually suit your sewing needs, to suit your flexibility. So you don't have any difficulties in whether it is a jacket you want to make, whether it is a suit you want to make, whether it is a trousers you want to make. You don't have any difficulties in making that, because you have already been given the tools to make all of that. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead with the pattern creation tools now. So I'm going to be opening a new avatar. I think we don't need this anymore for now. So like I told you earlier on, to open a new avatar, what you simply do is you come to your library box and you select the avatar you intend to open. And okay, I have two sets of avatar. I imported this set, but for this work, I'm going to just import this avatar right here. So you can simply double click on an avatar to open, and then Clo3D asks you, do you want to open this avatar, or do you want to add it to the existing one? What we want to do is that we want to open it. So we are going to say, okay, open. We don't want to add it to this. All right. So we have opened it, but you can see even as we have opened it, we still have that previous garment in this place. That's the way it works, but we don't want to make use of this previous garment anymore. So what we can simply come and do is that to clear this, our 2D cutting table, what we simply do is that we come here, file, and we say new. And by the time we say new, we can see we have all of that gone. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to take you through these tools, but I'm not going to be going into deep details with them, because if I try taking you through this one by one, in fact, we might actually finish this class maybe by tomorrow. And we are trying to finish this class latest by 8:30, 9 o'clock, 8:39, we should be done with this class. So this class should be about 1 hour, 30 minutes to 2 hours. But let's say a maximum of 2 hours. We are not trying to spend beyond that. So for that reason, I'm not going to be able to go into every very deep details of this tool, but I'm going to just give you an idea of how this tool works. So like I explained initially, the way you create patterns and the way you create clothes in Clo3D is simply by creating a pattern. You cut out your pattern here, and whatever pattern you create is replicated in this place. So I'm going to create a rectangle now. You don't need to worry about how I did it. I'm going to take you through the rectangle creation tool. I'm simply creating this rectangle so that I can explain how you can move around, how you can navigate around with this tool, and explain what's every part of a 3D pattern mean. So I drew a rectangle in this place, and as you can see, the rectangle got replicated in my 3D pattern window. You can see this is my rectangle here. I'm going to be labeling a pattern for you. So once you open this, you know that this is defined as a pattern. A pattern is made up of points and segments. So this is called a pattern in Clo3D. You can call it a piece, you can call it whatever name you want to call it, but while you are working with Clo3D, this is called a pattern. It is an island of pattern on its own. Just like in the real world, when you cut out a piece of cloth, you know, you refer to that part as a pattern. So this is basically a pattern. And now the part of a pattern are we have the line or segment. You can see we have this line I'm selecting. As I select this now, I can see the measurement of the line I've selected. So this yellow part highlighted is referred to as a line or segment in Clo3D. Now, these are the things you are going to be working with in Clo3D. So it's very important that you have an understanding with on them. You are going to be creating stuff using lines, segments, and then you have points. You can see this is your point. So you can edit your points. You are going to be editing your points to get the result you want to get. You can add an extra point. Okay. Splits. You can add an extra point. So don't worry about all of this. I'm still going to explain all of this for you. I'm just trying to explain how those points tool works. You also have your segment tool. You can move your segment tool around. So these are the things you actually use to create stuffs in Clo3D, your points, your segment, and then your pattern on its own. Very simple. All right. So I'm going to press Ctrl C to go back to the initial stage of our rectangle. Aha, so this is beautiful now. So the first tool we have on this place is our transform pattern tool. So what your transform pattern tool does is that it allows you to move your pattern around. It allows you to move your pattern, it allows you to scale your pattern, and it allows you to rotate your pattern. So one thing you are going to be doing a lot in Clo3D is that once you draw your pattern, you are going to be moving it to different places for the comfort of your work. You are going to be placing it on different places. So to place, what you simply do is that you simply click on this, your transform pattern. Once you click on it and it is highlighted, you see that it has this kind of guideline box highlighted on it, over it rather, and you can see it has this yellow highlight at the border. So what this is simply trying to tell you now is that you can actually move. This has been selected for movement, so I can move around. So that's what this tool does simply. And if you look deeper into this, you are going to notice that it actually has some options here again. You can see these tiny cycles here. So these are the cycles, the cycles that allow you to actually scale your pattern. So if I want to make my pattern bigger from this angle, I'm just going to come to the edge here. I'm going to click on this. Okay, click on this to scale. Aha. Then if I want to rotate, I'm simply going to do like this. Click on any of those tiny parts here, or rather the stop, and I can rotate. All right. So what this your pattern tool, your transform pattern tool does in summary is that it just allows you to move your pattern around. Once you draw a pattern, it allows you to rotate your pattern, and it allows you to scale your pattern. Then another thing I would like to explain very quickly on your pattern tool is that you see you have your basic pattern, transform pattern editing. Once you select this, you can perform the basic functions. But if you want to have some more customized options, you have to select what we call your center pivot. So you see when you select this, you will notice that you have some cycles around there. So if you go to the center of your model, you will see this blue tiny cycle here, and you see a little write-up saying double click to activate pivot. So once you double click on it, it turns orange. So this gives you more flexibility with your editing, because once you select this pivot tool now, you can scale everything simultaneously. You know, before when we use that option, we were able to scale only from one angle, but now you can scale everything together. Once you try to scale from this side, from an horizontal side, you can see that this is actually scaling at the other side. So your center pivot is just like a further editing or a further transform pattern tool that actually allows you to have more control over how you want to work with it. So if I take the center pivot from here, for instance, now, and I move it to this place, and I try to rotate, you can see if I try to rotate, it's actually going to be rotating from this angle. It's not going to be rotating from the center again because I've taken the center pivot and put it in this place. So for a start, you might not be using the center pivot a lot, but I'm just explaining that to you just in case you are going further into, editing with patterns. You have the flexibility of working with that tool. Then right here, what's the next tool we have? Okay, we have the edit pattern tools, but I'm not going to be looking at that tool next. I think if I do that next, it might be quite complex that way. So instead of going to the edit pattern tool, I'm going to look at the tool that actually allows you to create patterns. Then when we look at the tool that allows us to create pattern, we are going to look at the tools that allows us to edit the patterns that we have created. All right. So these are the tools here. These are the tools that allows us to edit our pattern. We have the polygon tool, we have the rectangle tool, and we have the ellipse tool. So these are the tools used to draw out, sorry, not edit. These tools are used to draw out your patterns. Then after you draw out your patterns, you can now edit them. So I'm going to be starting with the rectangle tool. So a lot of times you are going to be needing to create rectangles while you are working. So how you do that is that you simply come to this place, you left click, you open the options here. If you want to use an ellipse is also like a circular shape. You select it, but we want to use the rectangle for now. So we select the rectangle tool, and then we draw it this way. We left click and you draw it this way. Aha. Then in that way, we have our rectangle shaped form. So I'm going to take that again so you can understand that. You come to your tool options, you select your rectangle. You can see that you have S as the shortcut. Select our rectangle. Then you simply left click. So while you are left clicking, you are not leaving your mouse. You just drag it in the direction you want to move it. You can see in that way we have been able to form a rectangle. So the other way you can actually make a rectangle on Claude 3D is that instead of drawing it out, you can actually just left click. You can see once I left click like this, it brings out this option. It brings out this dialog box that allows us to be more specific on how we want our rectangle to look. So if I want the width of my rectangle to be about, let's say I want it to be 200, and I want the height to be about 200 too. Okay, let's make the height about 300. I simply put in those figures. I can also select how many number of rectangles I want to create. Let's say I want to create 4. You can come here to number of shapes under the replicate options and select 4. You can select the angle. This one is at 90-degree angles now. And you can also select the space you want in between the rectangles you have created. So let's say I want 500 millimeters to be 500 millimeters aside. You can see that the space has increased. So this is a very fast way to actually create rectangles. It is more stressful if you say you want to start creating rectangles one by one, and that's going to stress you out. So the quick way is for you to just left click. I'll show you that again. Left click. Then you can edit and input the figure or how you want your rectangle to look. Okay, beautiful. So that's simply how you create your rectangle. Then another thing is that, okay, let's go to the ellipse. So I think I don't want to go too much into details. I'm just going to go ahead, and while we are actually doing the class activity, while we're trying to make the Ankara gown, I think we'll be able to touch some of these tools. So we'll be able to have a wider understanding of them. So you have the ellipse tool too. Your ellipse tool works almost like the rectangle tool. It follows the same principle. You hold your shift and you drag. So this is simply how you create a cycle in Claude 3D. Hold your shift. The reason why I'm holding my shift is because of I don't want it to deform. So if I don't hold my shift and I just drag it like this, it's going to deform. So if I want it to actually be I want the cycle to be perfect, I hold shift and I draw. Perfect. You can also right click. Left click, just like the way we work with the rectangle, and you can use that to actually determine the measurement of the cycle you are creating. So if I want this to be 50 by 50, okay, 50 by 50 seems a little bit small. Let's give it 500 by 500. Aha, this looks better. So you can, you can define the shape of your cycle, the measurement of your cycle by your radius. You can define it by your diameter. You can also define it by your circumference. And just like the way we have the replicate option in our with our rectangle tool, we also have it with our ellipse tool. So I can make more than one rectangle ellipse if I want, and I can also determine how much space I want to give in between it. All right, you can see we have created the cycles. So these tools are very important because a lot of times when you are working, just like the way you do when you're actually showing in real life, sometimes you need cycle to actually fill in some spaces. You need your rectangle tool. Maybe you want to make a belt, for instance. Now you are going to use that your rectangle tool to make your belt. Then lastly, I'm going to be talking about our polygon tool. So what your polygon tool does is that it allows you to have more control while you are creating a shape. So when you want to use your polygon tool, you can see instead of just left clicking and dragging and it forming a shape. No, with your polygon tool, you actually get to draw. Your polygon tool is just like your pencil that you use to draw on your cardboard. So if I was going to draw a shape on this woman, for instance, maybe the shape of a cloth, I can go like this with my polygon tool. So to activate your polygon tool, after selecting it, you left click. Then you don't leave it, you go to the next point you want it to be, you left click. Again, you left click. You left click. You can go down. All right, so this shape I'm doing is not fine at all, but I'm just doing it to explain how this tool works. You can go like this, you can go like this, you can go this way. Aha. So you can see. So if we intended to create like the shape of a cloth, for instance, this is the basic way we are going to start. This is how we are going to start. Aha. So this is how we are going to start. What's the word? This is how we are going to start creating the shape that we are going to use. So don't worry about the action I performed right now. We are still going to go there. I'm going to take you through all those processes. So that's what your polygon tool does. Your polygon tool simply allows you to draw out your shape the way you like. So once again, to use your polygon tool, you left click at the point you want to start drawing your pattern. Then you continue drawing. You click, control, click. Now, another thing you should know is that while you are working with your polygon tool or most tools, most drawing tools in Clo3D, once you hold shift like this, it's going to bring out these guidelines. So one thing Clo3D helps you out with is that it helps you out with measurements. Clo3D will not stress you while you are trying to get your measurements with Clo because it makes everything easy. For instance, now if I was trying to continue working on a straight line and I just hold shift, you see that Clo3D brings out this guideline that allows me to snap. So I cannot snap in between and get a wrong figure if I'm not trying to work or if I'm trying to work on something orthographic. So by holding shift, you actually get to be able to snap. So another thing about this tool is that while you are working with this tool, if you hold control, all right, I'm going to press escape. Sorry. Okay, I think my mouse might be malfunctioning. Now let me see what the issue is. Sorry, just a minute, please. Let me see what's wrong. Okay, what could be the problem? Just a while, please. Let me figure out what is going on. I think my system might be hanging just a little bit because it has had a stressful day. So please bear with me. Okay, I think my system is hanging just a little bit, but no problem. We can still go ahead with that. We can go ahead with that. I was going to show a particular function, but it seems it's not allowing me to explain what I want to explain right now, but there is no problem. We'll find a way around that. All right, so basically Like I said earlier, that is how you use your polygon tool. So whether it is a sketch you want to create, for instance, now you are still going to use your polygon tool to actually draw out the sketch. You draw out the shape of the sketch. You can draw the shape. You can see the shape of the avatar, the silhouette of the avatar on our 2D pattern window. So we are going to allow that to guide us while drawing our sketch. Of course, we don't need many points like the way I just did now. So instead of going back and just deleting everything that I deleted, you can actually go back by 1 point, because sometimes you'll have taken a lot of time to actually draw out a pattern, and maybe you just make one simple mistake by clicking on a particular point. So you might want to go back to this point here. So if I press Ctrl Z, it's going to take out everything that I've done. So the shortcut to that is that you can simply press backspace. So when I press backspace, it takes me 1 point back. You can see. Aha. So very simply, with this tool, you can actually draw out shapes. I'm just freestyling with this shape. You can draw whatever shape you want. You know, it is the shape that you draw that will determine how crazy your clothes is going to look like. So feel free. There is nothing you cannot draw with this. I'm going to teach you how to use the pattern editing tool now. So after you have drawn out your shape, you can actually edit your pattern to have more flexibility. And the other thing about using a polygon tool is that you have to close your polygon tool. You see, you have to close it at the point where you started drawing it. See, if I just keep on clicking around like this, if I just keep on clicking around like this, I might not be able to achieve anything tangible, except I come and close it back at this place. Okay, my patterns are intersecting too much, but simply put, I have to just come back to the place where I've started drawing the pattern so that I can close it back in this place. So basically, that's how your pattern tool works. That is how you draw things in Clo 3D. So once you have drawn this out like this, the next thing that you're going to do is that you are going to be editing the shape after drawing it out. All right. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to draw the shape of a simple shirt. Then I'm going to now use our pattern editing tool to actually explain how you can edit the patterns you have drawn in Clo 3D. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go this way, go this way, go this way, then go this way. Aha. So you know, for instance, if you were going to make a shirt in real life, your shirt is not going to have all these sharp edges. You want to have the flexibility to be able to curve in your edges, to be able to add points if you feel, oh, you need some parts to go in much more than the other. So have that flexibility, you are going to need to understand how to use the pattern editing tool. So before I go ahead with my pattern editing tool, what I'm simply going to do is that I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to unfold it in such a way that whatever I perform on one side of the clothes applies on the other. So to do that, you can simply left click at the middle, right click and say unfold symmetric editing with sewing. So you can see in this way we have the basic shape. Now we want to edit this shape. We want to give it the curves that we expect our clothes to have. So before I go ahead and give it the curve, I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to reduce the opacity. The opacity means the transparency, so that I can see through the cloth to see the body shape of my avatar. So your edit pattern tool. So the first edit pattern tool we have here is your edit pattern. And what your edit pattern does is that it allows you to move around in Clo 3D. It allows you to move your point, your segment in Clo 3D. So if I select this now, if I feel that, oh, I feel this part needs more allowance, I'm going to use my pattern editing tool to select this. And I'm going to move it up. You can also move your points with your pattern editing tool. I want to take this down more. So you can see I can move my patterns around. I can move my I can move my segments. I can move my lines around with my pattern editing tools. I can come here again. Sorry about that. I can come here, move this way, depending on the style I want to do. So I have that flexibility to just move. And you can see that whatever action I perform here is being replicated here. That's because I've activated the symmetry tool by unfolding this as a symmetry pattern. So you can see. So what your edit pattern does is that it allows you to select your lines and your points. So I might want to actually edit this point. I might want to take it up. You can see. So another thing that you can also you should also note while you're working with your edit pattern tool is that it gives you the flexibility of working with measurements. Now, if I select this line, you see that it has already told me that the line I selected is 123.6 millimeters by simply saying this. If I select multiple lines, it's going to show me the line of this particular segment. This one is 201.0 millimeters. And then if you want to know the combination of the two lines I selected, you look around my mouse, look at close to my cursor here. You can see it's telling me with this tiny blue writing that I have selected up to 324 millimeters of line. That's the addition of this segment plus the addition of this segment. So while working with lines, what you can simply do is that, sometimes instead of just moving your point around like this, all right, I'm sorry about the slow performance of my system. It's because I don't know, for some reasons it seems things are heavy on it this night. All right. So if I want to move my segment this way, you can see instead of just moving around and just not working with measurement, if I want to actually move by 50 millimeters, you can see immediately I start moving, you can see Clotilde is already telling me how much I am moving. Now I've moved 34 millimeters, I've moved 43 millimeters, I've moved 50 millimeters. Aha. Sometimes I might not want to go through the stress of actually moving and having to calculate what I'm doing. So instead of going that way, I can left click, and during the process of moving, I just right click. Then it brings out this dialog box called moving distance. So here I can input how much distance I want to move. So I want to move by 50 millimeters. I'm simply going to click on 50. And you can see that my line has already moved 50 millimeters. If I want to move by 100 millimeters, I'm simply going to input 100. I have moved by 100 millimeters. If I want to move by 200, okay, you can see I've moved by 200 millimeters. So that's a very fast way of working. Instead of actually going like this and actually moving it manually, you can always left click, then right click your pattern, so you can get all of this activated very simply. All right. So that's simply how your edit pattern tool works. It allows you to move around. You can also select multiple segments at once. So I can select these two and move them together by simply holding shift. So if I select one now and I press shift, I can actually move this around perfectly without stressing. You can see. Beautiful. All right, so the next tool we have is our transform point, transform segments. Okay, this is actually almost the same with this. I don't think it's something we are going to be considering much because it works basically the way your edit pattern tool works. See, it allows us to edit segments like the way the first works. So it's still almost the same. So we are not even going to be looking much into that. The next one we are going to be looking at is that our edit curve point. So what your edit curve point does is that, I mentioned earlier that when you are working with, when you are designing a cloth, you actually don't want to work with a completely straight line. You actually want to have curves. For instance, if you are designing a collar, for instance, you don't just have your collar line come down straight like this, except you are trying to make a v-neck. And I even believe that when you make a v-neck, you still have some level of curve to it. So what your edit curve point does is that it allows you to add curve. So you can see, I can start adding curve into my work. Add this curve, add this curve. I can add this curve, I can add this curve. So I can start having more better flexibility with my work. You can see if I was trying to create a singlet, for instance, now this is already starting to take the shape of a singlet. So very simply, the tool just allows you to add points on lines. If I wanted to give this a little bit, make it a little bit this way. If I want to bring this down a little bit, you can see. So that's what your edit curve point do. It simply allows you to add curve points to segments. Now, the beautiful thing about your edit curve point tool is that it does not obstruct your workflow. You can see I've edited this point and it did not actually add any extra points to all those things that I'm working with. But by the time I go and activate edit curve point again, it's going to actually bring out the curve point I was working on. then you can actually convert a curve point to let's say it right now, you can convert it to segment point. So in case I've created a point and I actually want it to be a black point like this so that I can use it when I'm swaying, when I'm performing other options, I can right click on the segment point, on the curve points created rather, and say convert to segment points. So I'm not going to go much deeper into that, but that's basically how that works. That's how your segment point tool works. Then for the other tools we have our edit curvature. Your edit curvature tool works almost like the edit curve point tool. What it allows you to do now is that it allows you to actually select the curve, the segment you want to edit. It allows you to select it and actually move it this way. You can see. So this is basically how it works. Yeah, so but the difference is that your edit curvature tool actually works with what we call a Bezier tool. So to bring out that Bezier tool, we are going to go and select what we are looking for. Select this, and you can see we can actually edit with our edit curvature tool this way. Then lastly, we have our add point, which allows us to add points to what we are working with. You can add points. All right, we can add points this way. And once we add points, we know we can of course go and edit the point. Then the last tool I'm going to be showing on the edit pattern tool is going to be the smooth curve tool. Yeah, so what this smooth curve does is it allows you to round up a corner. So if I didn't want this edge to be straight, I can just simply draw it out like this. So that's how this tool works. All right, so these are the basic tools for creating a pattern in Claude 3D. The next thing we are going to be doing now is that we are going to be looking at how we can apply these principles to actually create a cloth. So we are running out of time, of course. So I'm going to see that by at least 8:40 we are done, and then we have some time for some questions. Then we can round up with the class. So very quickly, I'm going to take you how you can create an Ankara gown in Claude 3D. And I've made a reference, I've gotten a reference point for the type of Ankara gown we are going to be creating. So if you actually come to this place and okay, yeah, you can go on Pinterest in case you want to get this type of garment, just to have whatever idea is on your mind. So this is the Ankara gown we are going to be creating. We are not going to be using this exact type of texture, but as much as possible, we are going to create this type of garment, and then we are going to add a texture. So I'm going to be doing this quite quickly because of we are running out of time. So very quickly, I'm going to get I've written down a couple of measurements that I'm going to be using while working with this. It is always advisable that you know your measurement, although you might not have your initial measurement when starting with making your clothes, but it is always very good when you have your measurement for working, so you don't spend too long trying to figure out what a particular measurement should be. All right, so very quickly, I'm going to make this now. We are going to make this Ankara gown. Okay, so like I said, you use your polygon tool to actually create shapes. So I'm going to come this way now. Sorry. Okay, let's go. So I'm making this image based on the Ankara that we are seeing, and I'm not going to do this very slowly because of time. So this way, I can actually draw with my polygon shape tool to get the initial shape of the Ankara. All right, sorry about that. This way. Then, so I'm just drawing the shape of the Ankara top. Aha. So this is good looking now. Okay, sorry about that. My mouse fell down. Escape, backspace, get back to where we are, so we can press escape or backspace now. Control C. Aha. So we have the first side of our Ankara top. So the way we are going to be creating this Ankara top is that we are going to be creating the top side. We are going to be creating this belt here. Then we are going to be creating this flare skirt as quickly as possible. So With this, what I can do now is that I'm going to activate a symmetric sewing. So when you activate a symmetric sewing, you are just telling Clo3D that, okay, what I want you to do is that let me duplicate this side so I don't have to draw the other half pattern on this side. Then whatever I do on this side, I want you to be replicated on this side too. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to select unfold edit symmetry with sewing. With that, you right click and you select unfold symmetric editing with sewing. All right, so you have your two shapes out already. Then the next thing we want to do is that we want to look at the curves of the cloth. And when we look at this cloth, we can see that, oh, it actually has this soft curve around, and it also has this soft curve around the neck. And that's what we want to create right now. So we are going to select this. We are going to go to the edit curvature, and then we are going to go down this way to create this. So don't worry very much about the 3D view. We are still going to look at it and see that everything we are creating here is actually being replicated here perfectly, and we are going to sew it on the body. So this shape is looking good already. So what we can do now is that if we look at this cloth, we'll notice that it has a little bit, the arm is a little bit thick. All right, see, it has this kind of thick arm. So we are just going to extend the arm a little bit here. Aha, perfect. All right. So the next thing we do right away is that we can now select this tool, then copy it and paste it. But before we copy it and paste it, we are going to remove the linked editing. And we are going to right click symmetric pattern with sewing, or instead, okay, symmetric pattern with sewing. So what this symmetric pattern with sewing simply does is that it allows you to duplicate a pattern symmetrically. So whatever thing you do on this pattern is going to be replicated on this pattern. And that's the fastest way to work, because if you do a simply copy and paste by selecting copy and paste, then you select paste, it's going to allow your process to be stressful, because in that way, you are not going to be able to edit both of these together. So we want to first define the shape of the front and the back. We want them to be the same before we now go ahead and edit one part. So very quickly, I can see we are running out of time. about the break in network. I'm very sorry about that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead from where I stopped right now. All right. So I was talking about how you can actually use your symmetric pattern to make your workflow faster by actually duplicating what you have selected and what you have created and telling Clo3D to replicate that exact thing and carry out whatever function you are carrying. So if I go to it actually goes this way. So I've turned off my webcam because I think it's making the service a little bad. So if I go this way, it goes this way. And if I turn this way, whatever effect I'm doing here is actually being carried out in this place. All right. So now what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to sew this my pattern together. Yeah, and before I do that, I'm going to increase the transparency of this clothes. I actually reduce the transparency so that I could see through the side of my avatar. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to select the fabric again. I'm going to do opacity and make it full. All right, so what I want to do now is that I want to make this avatar wear this clothes. So how do I do that? To do that, I simply click on my clothes first on the other part and I arrange it on where I want it to be. So to do that, I'm going to bring out what we call the arrangement points. You can actually do this manually by moving it this way with your gizmo tool and going this way. But I like to use the arrangement tool most of the time because it actually makes the process much more easier. So by selecting this show arrangement point, it brings out all these blue options. So when I click on this right now and I select this, you can see that it actually fixes the clothes to a particular place. Then I can click on this back one too and select this.
Hello, David.
All right, Steven, now with you.
Please, your screen is not showing.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so sorry about that. Oh, I've been talking since and my screen is not showing. Wow. All right, sorry about that. Steven, please confirm if my screen is showing right away.
No, I can't see it.
Okay. Trying to figure out what's happening. I'm sorry for the delay. Okay, just a moment, please. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, what could be the cause of this? All right, Steven, so it's actually not bringing out the option where I get to share my screen. So I'm wondering where the issue could be from.
Okay, hold on then.
Okay, so I can show my screen. I think my screen is showing right away. You can see my screen now, right?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm quickly going to go back to where I stopped. All right. So I was talking about how you can actually place your objects, right? That if you are going to get this, if you want your avatar to actually wear the clothes you have sewn, then you have to sew the clothes you have made on the avatar. And then how do we go about this? Well, the first step you are going to need to take is to actually position your clothing material in the right place. So you can do this manually by selecting your object that has already been created in the 2D and moving it to the side you want to sew it on the avatar's body. Then another thing is that you have to flip it horizontally, because you know you don't sew the back of the clothes to the clothes. You have to flip it first. Then, so to flip, you simply right click and select flip horizontally so that the back side can be facing inside. Then we can move this a little bit too. All right. So we are still in the process of trying to get the perfect shape. Now, another tool that will make this process very easy is by using your arrangement point. So by selecting arrangement point, it brings out these options. This is where you get your arrangement point, this little blue dot here. So with this little blue dot, you can actually select and place your clothes where you want it to be. So that makes things much more easier. So I'm going to select this and I'm just going to place it. So it's placed it in specific places on the avatar body. So it makes it easier for your clothes to simulate. So I'm going to put this down a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to my pattern and see that everything is fine with my pattern. All right. So this looks a little bit small. I feel we might have a little bit of issue when we sew it. So I'm going to move this just a little bit so we can have more space. So I'm going to move this by 15. So instead of actually moving it manually, I can just select both like this, move, and then right click on 15 to actually move it this way. All right, perfect. Then I can use my sewing machine tool to actually select the part I want to sew. So to sew, what you do is that you come to this tool here. You have 3 major tools for your sewing, but what you are going to use the most is your segment sewing tool. So once I click on my segment sewing tool like this, it brings out this option. So you can actually sew in the 2D window or in the 3D window. So to sew, you click on the part you want to sew together. So just like the way you work when you're actually creating clothes in real life, I'm going to sew this by joining this part to this part. Okay, now I have to look at where I'm joining. I'm going to join this part to this part because that's where I want to sew. I'm going to sew this part to this part. I'm going to sew this part to this part. I'm going to sew this part to this part. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and simulate our clothes. All right, perfect. So to simulate, what you simply do is that you click on this button here, and once you simulate it, your clothes drapes on your avatar body. So this is looking great. What I'm going to do next is that I'm just going to look at our reference again. And when we look at our reference, you can say, okay, we're on the right path, but just that we have this part a little bit thicker. So in the next 15 minutes, I should be done with making this gown. So you people can ask your question, and as much as possible, we can still reach our time limit of the class. We could have fixed the class earlier, but we consider the fact that some people might actually be going out, and as today is Friday, this might just be the best time to have this class in the evening. So very simply, I'm going to move this a little bit so that we can have that thicker edge. I'm going to move this by 15. Okay. Then I'm going to select the other part. I'm going to move it by 15 because I want us to have that kind of thick edge that we actually see in the clothes we are modeling. Because a very important thing when making clothes is that you have to make sure that you are looking at your reference and actually achieving the exact thing you want to achieve. All right, so this is looking like it. The next thing I would like us to create now is this belt here. All right, look at this belt here. I want us to create this belt. So very quickly, I'm going to use my rectangle tool for this. So remember how I told you can use your rectangle tool by simply selecting your rectangle and then right clicking. So I've measured what would work fine, and I think maybe about 127 by let's say 25 will work fine. You can freestyle. When you are making your clothes initially, you can still do the freestyle to get what works. You don't necessarily have to have your measurement immediately, but just so I can make this class faster, that's why I've actually taken measurement to see that, oh, this works fine. So very quickly, I'm going to move this here. Then I can do a symmetric pattern based. Aha. I want to see that this is at the center, so I'm going to place it at the center of my silhouette. Then I go to this space and say reset 2D arrangement, so it can follow the arrangement of the 2D panel. All right, perfect. So I'm trying to create a belt to go around our waist. So I can copy this again and paste it. Copy, then paste. So this is the one that is going to be at the back side. So to do this, I'm simply going to press Ctrl. I'm going to flip it horizontally. So I'm going to right click and select flip horizontally. All right, perfect. So then I can move this up a little bit. Then I can take it to this back here. All right, perfect. Then the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to use my sewing tool to sew this again. You can either sew from the 3D window by selecting the two sides you want to join. Sometimes I find that more easier, but the truth is that majority of the time you are going to be sewing from your 2D window, except in cases where it is very easy to like see where should be where, like as we can see in this garment. So sewing this to this, you can see I'm sewing the upper part of the belt to the clothes, and I'm sewing the clothes to each other. All right, so and I'm going to sew the belt to themselves. And let's simulate and see what result we get. Aha, perfect. You can see we have the belt sitting down perfectly well on the clothes. All right, so the next thing we are going to do now is that we are going to create the flare skirt. Okay, let's create the flare skirt. So how do we create the flare skirt? You still use your polygon tool again to first draw the shape of the skirt. So I've measured how long I feel the skirt is going to be for what we're trying to create. So I'm going to give it a height. I'm going to start drawing and give it a height of about 650. Okay, I don't have my polygon tool selected, so I'm going to go right away and select my polygon tool. All right. Aha. Then let's move this a little bit. Let's just give this about 400. I'm going to give this about 400 right now, so I can show you how to use what we call the splash and spread tool. So let's give this about 400. We know that last skirt has a lot of flare in it. We don't want it to, it's not the kind of tight skirt, so we want to be able to achieve all those folds. If you look at the skirt, you can see all those folds in it. We want to be able to achieve it. So what we can simply do now is that after we have created this part, we can, do the symmetric pattern, copying and pasting again, so that whatever effect we carry out on one place is being carried out on the other place. All right, so this is looking good. I'm going to use my tool again to actually position it in the right place. I'm going to first position it with my avatar silhouette. Then use my reset to the arrangement tool. Then I can now use my gizmo tool to place it well here. Take it down a little bit. Okay. Then before I duplicate it, there are some things I want us to take note of, especially when you are making things like skirts. So when you are making things like skirts, you don't want to have this everything straight. You want to give it a curve so that it can have that realistic feel. So to do that, what I'm simply going to do now is that I'm going to come to my edit pattern tool. I'm first going to make sure that I take this down a little bit. Okay, instead of taking it down, I can just actually select all of this, select the whole segment and move it down like this a bit. Aha, this looks good. So it can have that kind of curvy feel. We are still going to make this more of a curve. Then we can go to our edit curvature tool and then just, give it some curve. Let's give it this curve. Okay. Then we can move this. Aha. We can move this up a little bit. Then we can come with the edit curvature tool again and give this part a curve here. All right, I think this is good to go. We can work with this. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to actually select this. I can move this down a little bit so I can have this thing look a little bit more. I'm going to use my edit pattern tool. I want this to actually look straight. So I'm going to take this and move this down a little bit. Aha, this looks better. So we have the curve looking good. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to copy this and I'm going to duplicate it. copy, then I'm going to paste it here. Aha. All right, so let's see. We want to put this at the back. We want to position it. So we use our gizmo tool to move it to the side. Then we flip it horizontally so we can put it at the back. Then we move it here. Aha. So the next thing we do now is that we actually come and sew the skirts together, just like the way we sewed other part of the clothes together. So we sew. You can sew here to here. All right, we sew the skirts to each other. I'm trying to be time conscious so we can finish in as quickly as possible. I wish we had enough time so we could actually go through this much more slowly. But that's the purpose of our free class. We actually get to spend a lot of time. I can actually, watch you actually make this, correct you, and then we're able to go at a pace through which all of us are going to be able to enjoy and learn the process. But we can't go very fast, and teaching this kind of teaching as much as this will definitely take some time. So I hope you all can understand. So all right, so I'm just trying to sew everything to where I feel we should be. I've sewed all the part of the clothes to each other. Then I can go ahead and click on the simulation button. All right, so this is what I have, but this is not the result we are trying to get now. This is not what we are trying to get. We are trying to get something that has more flares. If you look at the clothes, you can see that we have this beautiful flare. Oh, I keep on closing that image. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let me just keep it so I don't close it again. Yeah. All right, so let's fire run. So what do we do to get that flare? Very simple. What you can do is that you come and use a tool called your fullness tool, and use that tool to create slash and spread. So I'm going to come to this place right now, and I'm going to come to the bottom. See, I'm going to click at the center point where I want to draw this slash line. I'm going to come down where I think the division should be. Then I'm going to click on each of the sides or one of the sides where I feel I want that segment to be. So I'm going to make this, let's make this 450 no, let's make it 500 because we want this to be very large. Remember that if you want to create a fair skirt, you want it to be very, you want not very, but you want it to have enough space so that your skirt can have enough space for that simulation. So you can see with my slash tool, I've been able to expand or extend this cycle. So I'm going to come to this place and do the same thing. I'm going to select my slash tool, come to this place again. Let me move this a little bit so we can see this very well. So okay, we come to our slash and spread tool. We select again, select this lower part, and okay, we give that part 500, so we can as well give this part 500 too. So once you have agreed with what you want to do, you can just double click on it to say, oh, this is what I want to do. So we can see we have this skirt looking much more wide, and we can see it looks destroyed in the 3D view, but don't worry, we are going to sort that out very quickly. Now, because of the slash we have created, this has become really terrible. Now you can see we don't want this, we want a curve. So we are going to come to our edit, our smooth curve tool, and we are going to go this way. We are going to click on the 2 points holding the segment together, select the segment you want to correct, and then we drag this down. Aha, you can see we have this much more smoother. So you want your works this smooth. So come here again, repeat the same process, select the line you want to make smooth, then drag it down this way. Aha, this looks beautiful. Okay, so what are we going to do next? Okay, we want to repair this. This is looking very terrible. So what I'm simply going to do is that I'm going to use my gizmo tool to select everything, and I'm going to reset it to a point of simulation. So I'm going to right click and say reset 2D arrangement. Okay, so this one I'm going to take it to the center here because I want to actually perform the reset 2D arrangement option. But if I do that, when I say reset 2D arrangement, it looks at how things are arranged in this place and it follows that. So the reason why we still have this shape at the center is because we have this one drawn at the center here. So I'm going to take this one and move it to this place and right click on reset 2D arrangement. You can see we have it back here like the way we had it before. And I'm going to select them again. And I'm going to move it. And I'm going to press flip horizontally. Aha. So we have this looking beautiful. Oh my gosh, I've made a mistake that I should not make. I can see this line is actually crossing each other. Where could the problem be? Okay, let me see. You don't want your lines to cross each other in the wrong way. So I'm quickly going to look at each other because this is like your thread. You want to see that the thread you're working with is actually arranged, it's actually sewn together in the right place. Just like if you were sewing in real life, you don't want to see that your thread is actually going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to right click this and just say reset to the arrangement again. Then I'm going to flip horizontally from here. And from here, I can just, of course, take it back this way. And then simply move it here. Aha. So this is looking better. I guess when we simulate, you are going to have a much more better result. So let's simulate now and see what we get. All right. So you can see we have a much more better result. We are starting to have the flare. So if you want this flare to actually be much more wider, there are different things you can do. Of course, you can increase the flare. Okay, this is folding going down a bit. Okay, let me just draw this down. Whenever you have issues with your simulation, maybe it's folding into each other, you can always drag it to the way you want so you can get a better result. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to see how I can add some flair, how I can make this blow up a little bit. So we have the option of actually editing the fabric. I'm sorry if I'm going a little bit faster than I started. I'm just trying to say that we have some time to ask some questions, and then we are able to finish with the 2-hour time that we promised. All right. So we have some tools called the bending weft and bending waft, which actually allows you to blow in breeze to a cloth, or actually allows you to to make your clothes look more swollen. So now, if I put my bending weft at 50, you can see I have this. I start having it go up more and more. If I take it and I want to give it another option, like okay, let's say I want to give it about 70. I want to give this one about 72. Aha. You can see we are starting to have a better flare. So I feel this flare is much, but it's all right. We are starting to get that folds that we like. So what I'm just going to do is that I'm going to add a texture to it. Okay, I think this flare is too much now. We want flare, but I don't think we want it too much like this. So we can reduce the flare. But I'm going to where's our set up work with avatars I've working with and see that avatar has some certain pros that creating your clothing. So I think simply do now is fabric tool. To add a texture, you select fabric, the fabric of the selected material you're working with. Then you come to your property editor. You come under your texture option. You see this texture option. So adding texture is actually very easy. You add texture, and then you can select whatever texture you want. You can download textures online if that's what you want to do. But I've gotten a texture we can use for what we are doing right now, and I think we can use this. If you have the exact texture of your material, that's going to be a beautiful idea. But we don't have the exact texture of this material, so aha, you can see we have added this texture already. So you can edit the texture, you can make it much more larger. We are not going to really look into that today. Sometimes you want more repeating of the texture. can actually do that by actually scaling up the texture. I see the way I'm scaling up the texture, but I don't like this fabric very much. So I'm just going to select another fabric instead. So I'm going to select this. Aha, I prefer this fabric. This fabric looks more beautiful. So yeah, basically we have been able to create this flare skirt. If you feel the flare is too much, you can always go ahead under the tool, under your fabric details, and then you can reduce the flare. Another way you can add more details is by, the more folds you have, it depends on how large your skirt is, just like, real life sewing principles. Now, you can also perform an animation for this, like you have been seeing the animations of clothes, and I'm sure that's part of the thing you have been enjoying. I thought about the possibility of this class taking much more longer than we planned. So I quickly did an animation just in case we are not able to do the animation. So I'm going to show you the animation done already, how the animation is going to look like. So if we are going to do an animation, you are going to add a stage. You have the option of adding a stage. You also have the option of choosing the style of animation. There are different work posts. So there are different things, but during our training, we are going to talk much more about that. Some of you might want to actually make your clothes dance. You might be looking at more than just a simple animation, like some of the things you have seen in our showreel. So I'm going to have to open the animation box. You come here. It's usually in simulation. Once you come to animation, then you can animate. So here's the animation of the clothes we just created now. You can see. You can see this beautiful animation with a different style. All right, so perfect. So I think that's the end of this class. That's the end of this class. We are going to be looking at how we can create more interesting things tomorrow. But our next class, I'll see how much we can work with time much more better. I guess I should have been looking at how I could have made the class much more shorter. So we are still looking at finishing our class at 9 o'clock. So we have 10 more minutes for students to ask questions. So Stephen, please, I would like to know if there is any question that would like to be asked.
No questions for now.
All right then, no problem. That's perfect. So if you have any questions regarding the process, you can always reach out to us on Telegram. We are going to have another class tomorrow, and we are going to be looking at how we can make things that are much more extensive than this. All right, thank you, and see you in our next class tomorrow. Bye. All right, Stephen, I think we are free to end the session.